Good morning. Good to see you. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks very much for joining us. We begin our show with that unprecedented fourth indictment facing former President Donald Trump over an alleged attempt to overturn the 2020 election result in the state of Georgia.
Trump is among 19 defendants charged with racketeering and conspiracy. They all have until next Friday, that's 9 days from now, to surrender voluntarily or face arrest. This morning, we're learning new details about what that process could look like. It all comes as Trump says he will present a, quote, irrefutable report of alleged election fraud in Georgia next Monday without providing any evidence of what that could include. NBC News spoke with voters in Georgia about the latest charges handed down to the former president.
I think it's about time that he was indicted for that. He's been investigating that a long time, and it's finally come to fruition. So I think it's something that needed to be done, and he needs to go to trial.
I don't think he belongs in jail because he's a former president. He has 74 million supporters. So I don't think he belongs in jail. I think it would be too divisive in this country. I think Giuliani and all his cohorts belong in jail.
MSNBC anchor Katie Fang joins us now from Atlanta. So, Katie, the countdown is on to next week's deadline to surrender. We understand Fulton County's Sheriff's Office has provided some new details about what that process could look like. It's different from the previous 3 indictments we've seen. So tell us more about what we could expect there.
Yeah, Joe, so we got some guidance yesterday from the Sheriff's Office indicating that all 19 defendants, and let me be clear, there's no carve-out for a former president in this guidance, that they're all going to be turning themselves in to the Rice Street Jail. That's a couple of blocks away from where we are at the Fulton County Courthouse. Now, why is that important? Well, normally there's a 2-step process. You turn yourself in, you post a bond, and then you eventually have an arraignment. That should still happen in this instance, but of course, being that we have a former president of the United States involved here with Secret Service, there might be some difference in how that goes down. But right now, the jail is also open 24/7. They don't keep bankers' hours. And so there could be people turning themselves in as early as today with little to no fanfare that we actually would expect with somebody like former President Trump.
Katie, the former president is still digging his heels into these claims of alleged election fraud in Georgia. He's even planning a news conference on it next week. But tell us about the state's Republican governor, Brian Kemp. What's his response here?
Yeah, so Brian Kemp is one of several Republicans that we all know about, like Brad Raffensperger and former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, who we know testified for hours in front of this Fulton County grand jury before that indictment was unsealed a couple of nights ago. Those are former Republicans or Republicans that actually stood the line and basically said to Donald Trump and everyone else, there was no election fraud in our state of Georgia. And so Brian Kemp taking a very markedly different position than Donald Trump. Donald Trump, of course, promising the total exoneration at Bedminster on Monday when he does have that press conference. But, of course, a lot of people are also saying he also promised an infrastructure plan, and everybody's waiting for that as well.
And, Katie, of course, Trump not the only one indicted here. 18 others were also indicted. What is some of the reaction we're hearing from some of those other people who were indicted? Specifically, 2 big names stand out, Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and his former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, so we are getting a legal response from Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff for Donald Trump. He is trying to remove his case from state court to federal court. But we're also hearing, of course, more vocally from somebody like Rudy Giuliani. And we actually have some sound from him if we want to take a listen to that now.
This is a ridiculous application of the racketeering statute. There's probably no one that knows it better than I do, probably some that know it as well. I was the first one to use it in white-collar cases. But in major cases like the Boesky case and the Milken case, this is not meant for election disputes. I mean, this is ridiculous what she's doing.
Problem for Rudy Giuliani right now, though, is he's actually admitted in civil litigation that was brought by Ms. Freeman and Ms. Moss, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, that sued him for defamation. As you know, he accused them of fraud during the 2020 election, the election process. He's actually admitted that he knows that it was a lie, what he said about them. So I don't know how he plans on, reconciling taking this position he's saying now, which RICO doesn't apply to him, and the fact that he's admitted that he knew that everything he said about the election fraud was a lie. And so we'll have to see what that happens in an actual court of law, not in a court of public opinion. But you can expect more and more statements coming out from more of these defendants.
All right, Katie Fang. Katie, thank you so much.
Well, among the more serious charges former President Donald Trump is facing is violating the Georgia RICO Act, as you were just hearing about. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson, though, is going to break down what RICO charges are and how Georgia prosecutors are using the statute against Trump.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
What does The Godfather have to do with the newest charges against former President Trump?
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
It's all about RICO, the law Mr. Trump's accused of breaking. That's the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, a federal law that nearly 36 states copied to combat a specific kind of crime.
Are you in the mafia?
Am I in the what?
Yes, organized crime. Back in the 60s, the Senate held hearing after hearing on what had become a serious problem, the mafia's corrupt influence.
You sat next to him. Then what happened?
Well, he had the knife and a gun on the table.
The hearings so dramatic, they're said to have inspired Mario Puzo to create the Corleones, the fictional family at the center of Francis Ford Coppola's Godfather movie.
I'll handle it. I told you I can handle it. I'll handle it.
It was around that time that Congress passed the RICO Act. It works like this. Instead of trying to bust a sprawling criminal group person by person and crime by crime, it lets prosecutors sweep multiple people into one bucket, basically. They then have to prove the people in that bucket are working for an enterprise to set up a racket or scheme, and that at least 2 underlying crimes were committed to further that scheme. Crimes that could include murder, bribery, fraud, extortion. And under this law, the boss is not immune.
As we know from the prosecution of mob families, often it's a wink and a nod, but everyone understands what the boss wants and goes out and does that. And those can be crimes and they can be prosecuted.
Ever since Richard Nixon signed the law in 1970, the feds have used it a lot, including in New York, which pioneered prosecutions under RICO in the 80s to break up the so-called 5 families of the city's mafia, later taking down mob boss John Gotti. The prosecutor who built his career by leading that charge, by the way, Rudy Giuliani, who now faces charges himself under the law. It's not just used for mobsters, though. Top executives at FIFA also faced RICO charges. So how does it apply to Donald Trump? This newest indictment accuses Mr. Trump and 18 of his allies of a criminal enterprise, a scheme to illegally change the outcome of the election he lost. Georgia prosecutors don't have to prove it's related to some formal group like the mafia, but they will have to prove that at least 2 underlying crimes were committed to help that scheme along. And in this indictment, they cite dozens of alleged crimes, like witness intimidation, false statements, and forgery.
Our thanks to Hallie Jackson for that explainer there. Well, now for more perspective on the case, let's bring in our NBC News legal analyst, Danny Savalas. Hi, Danny. Always great to have you. So as we just heard there on this, prosecutors have to prove that at least 2 underlying crimes were committed to further the defendant's scheme. Walk us through proving that. How difficult is that going to be?
There are about 20 enumerated acts under the statute that qualify for those predicate crimes. But what makes this a little confusion is that these are overlapped with what are called overt acts, which are relevant to what's called a conspiracy. So for the RICO charges, you need the enterprise, which is alleged to be essentially, in this case, the campaign. The enterprise doesn't need to be a company. It certainly doesn't need to be the mafia. It can be any group working towards a common plan. But then when you get to the issue of the overt acts, conspiracy just requires an agreement to achieve some unlawful objective and an overt act. It doesn't need to be a crime. There you see there are several conspiracies charged. There are 2 counts, another 2 counts I see there towards the bottom. I mean, conspiracy is all over this indictment. And I would argue as much as RICO is very significant, so too is conspiracy, because it just requires evidence of that agreement, which doesn't have to be a written agreement. Criminals do not write down their unlawful agreements on paper. It's inferred by conduct, by behavior. Happens all the time in drug cases where there's not a written agreement. So you see that agreement, an overt act doesn't need to be a crime. For RICO, you do need 2 predicate crimes, but the Georgia statute is very permissive about what kinds of conduct can constitute those predicate crimes.
So, Danny, I mean, racketeering is a pretty broad catch-all charge. We already know we've seen federal charges when it comes to election interference. So how likely is this state case in racketeering likely to overlap with the federal charges? Does it ever make sense to roll them all together into a larger federal case?
You cannot. You cannot roll a state court case into a federal case because the federal government has no jurisdiction to prosecute local and state crimes. So while you'll see crimes alleged in the Georgia indictment that may sound similar to federal crimes alleged against Donald Trump, they are different statutes, and never the twain shall meet, because each sovereign jurisdiction cannot prosecute the other's crimes. And that's actually why there's no double jeopardy issues, because these are considered separate sovereigns, literally separate kingdoms. And the kingdoms would be the federal government and the state government. And so that's why they can prosecute crimes that may sound and smell and feel very similar, but there's no double jeopardy issues. Sometimes the federal government has a policy of refraining from prosecuting if they think the state crimes are adequate, but they're not bound by that procedure. And as a criminal defense attorney, I think the defense bar would say they break that procedure all the time. So it really doesn't matter. Each can charge in their own court. Neither can charge the other's crimes.
So, Danny, quickly on this point, moving it to a federal court is exactly what former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows is trying to do. Explain that to us. Is this just about geographic location? Why would he want that? And how likely is a judge to grant that request?
You got me, Savannah, because that is a very rare exception where really it's not the federal government prosecuting these crimes if you remove it to federal court. Removal, and I've removed many cases, although under a slightly different section. Removal is basically like a castle move in chess. It's a tactical move where a defendant can take a case and automatically send it up to federal court. It just gives the defendant a kind of home field advantage. Here's some differences that may sound minor, but they're actually pretty significant. You're taking a prosecutor, a state prosecutor, out of the court that they know so well, that they're so familiar with, and putting them in an alien place, which is federal court. You're also going to draw, if you are a bunch of Republican defendants, you're always going to draw from a larger geographic area for your jury pool. That'll get you to the suburbs, and presumably that'll get you to more Trump voters. That could be the most significant strategic move. If this case stays in federal court, and I don't think it will, but if it did, that could make the difference between a win and a loss for these defendants.
All right, Danny, thank you so much.
Now let's get to the latest on the Hawaii wildfires as members of FEMA are getting a firsthand look at the damage. FEMA toured hard-hit Lahaina yesterday. The wildfires have left at least 106 people dead across the state as victims have begun to be identified. Thousands were forced to evacuate and more than 2,700 structures have been destroyed. It's still unclear what sparked the wildfire. President Biden has promised the full support of the federal government in Hawaii's recovery efforts.
I've spoken to Governor Josh Green multiple times and reassured him the state will have everything it needs from the federal government. It's painstaking work. It takes time. And it's nerve-wracking. Most of the debris can't be removed until it's done.
The president also says he and First Lady Jill Biden plan to travel to Hawaii, but no date has been set yet. Meanwhile, let's look at something a little more hopeful. Here's new video of the famed banyan tree in Lahaina getting watered by the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources. Officials believe the tree will survive. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer joins us now from Maui with the very latest. Hi, Miguel. Good morning. So let's start with FEMA on the ground. Tell us more about their tour of the damage and the efforts by the federal government to try and get people back on their feet, especially while it comes as we're seeing these reports of Hawaiians themselves setting up this type of resource chains, rescuing other people. Tell us what's going on here with FEMA now.
Well, Savannah, FEMA took us down to the burn zone late yesterday and gave us a tour of just how large the scale of their search and rescue effort is. It is a Herculean task. They are searching block by block, building by building, home by home. They've only covered about 27% of the burn area. As you know, the death toll now stands at 106. That number is without question going to rise over the next couple of days. The question is, how high will it rise? FEMA says every day they are finding what appears to be bodies in the wreckage field, and those guys are working all day long with cadaver dogs to try to make hits on bodies there. We're told that the wind speeds and the fire was moving at about 80 miles an hour when it blew through that area. That's how quickly it incinerated everything in its path. So the task there on the ground is going to take weeks to complete. They're actually hoping to have most of the search field done by the end of this week, but identifying what are bodies and the remains of folks who lost their lives is going to take quite some time, Savannah.
Miguel, I also want to ask you about these comments that Hawaii's Governor Josh Green made. He gave an update yesterday on the wildfires where he clarified something he'd said about calling for a hold on sales of land to non-residents. Tell us about that.
Well, Savannah, there's been a lot of talk about this. Many of the local residents who lost their homes, and some folks who don't even know if they've lost their homes because they've not been allowed back into the burn zone, say they've been getting calls from real estate companies and realtors who are asking to buy their property before they've even been able to see it. Many have criticized that move as a land grab, saying the Hawaiian people are going to be pushed out by folks with deep pockets who want to rebuild this area and put luxury homes in the area. Here's what the governor said.
Rebuilding will be for our local people. We'll work with the world, and we so appreciate the incredible generosity. That generosity demonstrates that most, 99.999% of everyone who has watched these telecasts and this crisis unfold wants to support and love the people of Maui and Hawaii. But it's my job to look out for those who might take advantage.
Savannah, obviously the rebuilding process is still months away. The cleanup here they haven't even discussed that beginning here, right. But they are taking all of these concerns very seriously, obviously.
Miguel, before I let you go, I do also want to talk about these lawsuits filed against Hawaiian Electric in the wake of these wildfires. Explain to us what they're claiming against the utility company and any response we've heard.
Well, as it stands right now, there are 3 class action lawsuits against Hawaiian Electric. Folks are claiming that the power company failed to actually shut off the power at the height of this fire, and that may have fueled this blaze if it didn't spark it. There's also been claims by some residents that downed power lines were sparking many of the brush fires. That is all, of course, under investigation. The FBI is on the ground. They are leading that investigation. There has been no official cause for the fire. That, too, could take weeks, if not months, Savannah.
All right, Miguel, thank you very much.
It was just over a week ago that flames descended on Maui, changing the course of the island's history forever. NBC News correspondent Noah Pransky takes a look back at how we got here, including some of the early warning signs.
It could take months, maybe years of investigating to determine exact causes of the fire, mistakes that may have been made, and a timeline of events. But let's unpack the best reporting we have as of right now, because it paints a picture of chaos, despair, and some missed opportunities to save lives. This fire story starts with wind. And actually, we're going to zoom out to 2 days before Maui was aflame.
The National Weather Service actually gave us the red flag warning ahead of time.
Sunday, August 6th. That's when the National Weather Service issues a fire weather watch related to the powerful winds driven by Hurricane Dora off to the island's south. The morning of Tuesday, August 8th, a series of small fires break out, including one about 1.5 miles from the ocean. Those fires, according to officials, were 100% contained a few hours later. But the wind continued to whip trees, roof tiles, and power lines, many of which reportedly stayed energized. Okay, key moment here, 3:15 p.m. That's when the Lahaina fire grows so large, for the first time, it can be seen from space.
Oh my God, I think we need to load up the car maybe.
The scene is still 1 mile away from the ocean, but the fire was moving fast thanks to those winds and acres upon acres of burnt out non-native grasses ahead of it. First responders, already stretched thin from the morning fires, struggled to keep up with the flames.
And then I saw one Fred dead on the ground like a piece of charcoal.
But state officials said the 80 warning sirens around the island never sounded. And Maui Emergency Management didn't order the immediate evacuation of the crowded neighborhoods near Lahaina's downtown, even as fire and smoke started overwhelming neighborhoods. The evacuation order came finally at 5:50 p.m., but by that point, residents had already started taking fate into their own hands.
Just seemed like every second was 10 hours waiting.
But not everyone fled from the flames by car. Some resorted to the Pacific Ocean or swimming pools in the middle of the inferno, one that would burn for days, claiming homes, livelihoods, and lives, and also raise questions about how the deadliest natural disaster in the state's history might have been avoided. Noah Pransky, NBC News.
Now to some tropical systems that could have an impact on Hawaii.
That's right. Angie Lassman joins us now with the latest. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. We've got a couple of things that we're watching in parts of the eastern Pacific. We've got Tropical Storm Greg, which is sitting just to the south and east of the Hawaiian island chain. And we've got a high to the north. Both of those not quite as strong or organized as the Hurricane Dora was last week when all of this unfolded. But still, that system and the high to the north are keeping it just a little breezier than normal. Those trade winds are elevated. estimated maybe 20, 25-mile-per-hour winds are expected across the islands at least through the next couple of days. By the time we get into Friday, that'll come down and we'll start to see much quieter conditions, maybe some passing showers. But as we look ahead to the end of the weekend and maybe into early next week, we could add some additional tropical moisture as what is now Hurricane Fernanda starts to work a little farther to the west. It becomes a remnant low, but still could be bringing with it some additional moisture that, of course, would be good for those that are still fighting some of those fires. We've also got Invest 90E that is sitting just off the coast of Mexico. That does have a pretty good chance of developing here over the short term. We're talking maybe a tropical depression over the next day or so, and it could eventually bring us some added moisture for folks in the southwestern desert parts of the country, as well as Southern California. So we'll wait and see exactly how this unfolds as we get into the end of the weekend and into early next week. But we could be talking about some rain in the forecast for folks there. Meanwhile, we've got some scattered showers across that same region. We've got some showers draped across parts of the Northeast and New England. We woke up to some soggy conditions along the I-95 corridor. And we've also got some scattered showers and a few thunderstorms left over along parts of the Southeast. And that is where we will find kind of the unsettled weather today, along with the Midwest. This is that cold front that pushed through and brought us some unsettled weather yesterday. But today we're going to keep the scattered showers across that same kind of area as that front slowly but surely works away. And we also have some thunderstorms that could develop right along that system as we go into the afternoon hours tonight, or today and into tonight. Meanwhile, as we get into tomorrow, that'll start to move a little farther to the east, that cold front, and bring us some Great Lakes showers and thunderstorms. Here's the area, though, that I want you to be aware of today. 5 million people at risk. With wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. It's a small area, but it does include some major cities. You can see Minneapolis included in that, and Duluth. And this is, again, the timing of late afternoon into the evening hours. As we get into tomorrow, the severe threat not as great, but it does include places like Indianapolis to Detroit and up into the northern portions of the lower peninsula of Michigan. Same kind of threat. So winds, hail, tornado threat is low, so that's good. One other additional thing with this is that we'll see some added rainfall, and we could be dealing with some flooding concerns across the state of Florida. Places like Savannah, Charleston, up into the mid-Atlantic could see some significant rainfall. And then from Burlington to Detroit and through Minneapolis and Duluth, we could see some maybe quarter of an inch to 50 or to half an inch of rain here. Not 50 inches.
50 inch
so
hail.
Don't worry. No 50
inches of rain.
But it could be a little soggy at times for folks there in the next couple of days.
All right. Thanks, Angie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.